Welcome to the Cashflow Ninja, the podcast sharing how to create and grow income streams and manage, multiply, and protect your wealth in the new economy. Are you tired of trading your time for money? Do you desire freedom today instead of retirement in 10, 20, or 30 years? I'm MC Laubscher, and this is the Cashflow Ninja. Hello, Cashflow Ninjas. MC Laubscher here, and welcome to another episode of the Cashflow Ninja. I have a great show for you today. In today's show, we're going to look at how to broadcast your message and brand through podcasting. My guest in this episode is Erik Cabral. Erik is the founder of the creative agency On Air Brands and the real estate investment company Mindado Investment Group. He's also the host, co-host, and producer on several shows: Entrepreneur Circle, Capital Hacking, Live at the Hive, Real Estate Hackers, SJREIA Live, and many, many more in progress. With multiple businesses and partnerships, Erik is the quintessential serial entrepreneur who spends much of his time helping others grow their businesses, brands, and personal brands. After leaving corporate America after 20 plus years, Erik jumped headfirst into real estate investing. He spent roughly a year educating himself, forming relationships, and analyzing hundreds of deals before he purchased his first multifamily apartment building. He is also a partner in the Renault Winery and Resort, which I am as well, which is the third oldest winery in the United States. And Erik also offers private capital to his network of investors for fix and flips, wholesale deals, and various other investment strategies. On December 6th, the second PodMax event will be held at the On Air Brands studio at the Hive in Trenton, New Jersey. If you have a business or a brand, this is a phenomenal opportunity to get your message and your brand out to a very large audience. So being a guest interviewee at PodMax will allow you to be a guest on multiple top-rated business podcasts, such as the Cashflow Ninja, the DeRosa Group YouTube channel, which Matt Faircloth hosts. They've got a massive following. The Real Estate Investor Show, which is Liz and Andreza's show. Liz Faircloth, a former guest on the show as well. And there's many, many other phenomenal shows that you get to be have the opportunity on to be interviewed. You also get a chance to meet and greet the keynote speaker, which is Jason Pfeiffer. He's the editor-in-chief of Entrepreneur Magazine, talking about proximity to power right there. Network and connect with all of the podcast hosts that are there, get to ask them any questions, and all of the real estate investors that would be there too, and other guests, interviewees, right, that would be interviewed on the show. You're going to get a reach of over 30,000 podcast listeners and social media just by being a guest interviewee at PodMax. And of course, there's food, there's lunch, and of course, the after party. So if you want to take advantage of this opportunity, you can apply at cashflowninja.com/PodMax. And when you use promo code Cashflow30, when you apply, you'll get 30% off. By the way, I also moved my December meetup in Newtown, Pennsylvania, which is about 25 minutes away from the On Air Brand studios, to December 5th. Which is the night before PodMax. So if you're coming in for PodMax to be interviewed on all these shows and network with all these amazing folks, it's really, really a great community. You can stay up in my area and join us at our meetup, and this will be a phenomenal evening just to network with an awesome group of investors the night before PodMax. Just throwing it out there. And by the way, if you've not checked out my new podcast, Cashflow Investing Secrets, you totally should. It's a shorter show, 10 minutes or less, where I share one concept and or idea at a time, what I've learned from interviewing over 500 Cashflow Ninjas. You can listen to the show on your favorite podcast, video, and live streaming platform. We also have an investment group and community for accredited investors. If you're interested to join the group, please visit cashflowninjainvestorsnetwork.com, and you can also join us on Facebook by searching Cashflow Ninja Community. My friend Brian Page has created a cash flow machine generating over $100,000 in 6 months without owning any real estate. His system consists out of renting properties from property owners and renting them out on Airbnb. His system is so simplistic, it can be managed by virtual assistants and yet so effective and powerful that it predictably generates cash flow every month. Brian and I are hosting a webinar where he shares his system and how it generated over $100,000 in 6 months for him personally. You can access this life-changing webinar at cashflowninja.com/BNB. This is one of the greatest cash flow opportunities I've seen since I've started my podcast. Again, the URL is cashflowninja.com/BNB. Eric, welcome back to the show.
So happy to be here, brother. Always a treat. Always a treat and an honor.
Yeah, always a pleasure. Always a pleasure to spend some time with you. I'm super excited about our talk today because we've got some good stuff to share here with all of our listeners. So, Eric, just for Cashflow Ninja listeners that's not familiar with you and what you do, could you please share a little bit about your background and your journey?
Yeah, absolutely. I had the pleasure of being on your show earlier. I honestly forgot the name of the number of the episode, but I do a deep dive, I think, into my story there.
Yep.
But I'll give a quick, brief synopsis of my journey so far. I was in corporate America for over 20 years. And what I did during that time was really become an expert in creative. So what does that mean is I was really a part of many internal creative agencies within big corporations. So people who aren't familiar with that industry, usually or any industry that hires creative teams or creative agencies, usually they hire out to New York City agencies, which charge $150 to $200 an hour. So what would happen is I would work for corporate companies, big pharma companies mostly, and they would bring all of that internally and say, hey, why don't we save money by bringing the creatives from New York City into the company and then have them build and recreate an agency for us? So that's what I became a part of. I did it multiple times, from the bottom all the way getting to the top of the food chain as a creative director in the number one pharma company at the time. And what happened, MC, for me during that trajectory was I realized what my superpower was. And that was building teams, inspiring people, and growing something from the ground up. So I got very, very comfortable and very, very confident in building teams and creative agencies. And when I was laid off in 2016, 17, it hit me that why am I making the companies who are multi-billion-dollar companies millions of dollars, which is a drop in the bucket to them, literally making millions of dollars, and I'm not doing it for myself. I think I'm going to give this a shot. So that's what brought me to create my own agency. And then, through that course, through that journey, I met you, which has been amazing, absolutely amazing.
It's been a lot of fun, and we've become great friends and spent a lot of time together. So I've seen a lot of behind the scenes and all of the really cool stuff that Eric's involved with his team. And one of the things that I've seen that is just, it's just so amazing to see stuff like that happens firsthand, right? As opposed to seeing the case study later. But one of the things that Eric does is he works with a lot of folks in the real estate industry, right? And there's some people that he helped with, and he literally helped them to create a brand, figuring out what they stand for, what they're about, the principles, values, and eventually he helps them create this brand that they now own, right? And that turns into a podcast, and that gets their message out there and helps them broadcast their message on all of the different platforms, all over social media. And the stuff that I've seen, I'm just running, my mind is spinning right now just because there's so many. I could just pick a whole bunch of them, right? But there's been folks that the doors that have opened for these folks because they have that brand, right? They're just not another real estate investor, right? So now all of a sudden they have a brand, they have a platform, they share their message, they broadcast their message, they can reach thousands of people, not just in the United States, but all over the world. The doors that have been opened up for these folks, whether it's speaking opportunities at very large conferences, national ones, right? Not just local ones. There's one particular brand that they gained such a big following. They're hosting their own conference, next year, which is it's just super exciting to see. Really the cool. real estate hackers one. And then just the other one too, like the one that you do with Josh, do capital hacking, is just phenomenal. And the whole capital hacking community that is shaped and formed, and they do trips together, right? Learning about syndications. Yeah. Our audiences have cross-pollinated, and we've created this amazing this amazing community ecosystem, ecosystem that now has the Learn and Grow event at the Renault Winery that we're partners and owners in that winery. So I mean, I know I've rambled on here for a little bit because this stuff really gets me excited.
It is, yeah. And I can hear in your voice. I'm so excited. You and I have known each other for, roughly a year, and so much has happened since the first day we met to now. Yep. And like you said, a lot of those brands, I don't know if they existed or if they were just starting at the time. Yep. But it's really amazing to watch, that launch from nothing to conferences, to communities that travel together, to partnering on deals, to you name it. It's not just a podcast. And I'm always very careful with using that word because it defines itself in people's minds as one thing. But what happens when we build brands, we start with a show. And then the show eventually evolves into, say, a meetup of a dozen people, and then it could have. I'm saying this is sort of the walkthrough of what could happen once you develop a podcast and how far you want to take it. So then it goes into meetups, and then those meetups turn into traveling together as a tribe to larger events, and then eventually those evolve into what you said is conferences, where literally 1,000 people, dozens of vendors, all of this stemming from one simple thing: creating a brand and starting with a podcast. It's absolutely amazing to see the potential, and if it has the correct operators, just like any asset, and the passionate driving force behind it. And then once you put that out there, you put that energy out there, they will come. They will come and help support and lift you up. And that's how you and I, and that's how all of our partners operate. And it's really a successful blueprint to follow. Yeah. And by the way, I just wanted to share this again. I know you mentioned our previous episode. You really want to check out, it's episode 465, right? 465. So cashflowninja.com/465, because Erik really goes into detail about how to build a brand, where to start, and he takes you through all these different steps of how you can do that. So I just want to share that again and plug that episode, because we've got a lot of new listeners and we get new listeners every week. You really want to go back and listen to that one, because I've seen this now firsthand. I'm a believer, right? I've seen it firsthand happen, and I've seen the power of this. You mentioned the meetup. I mean, Liz Faircloth, Matt and Liz, also two of our great friends. And she's been a guest on the show too. Just look at what's happening to her show with meetups. It's amazing. It's all over the country now. Yeah. I mean, what is it, like 20 different meetups in 20 different cities? It's crazy. Yeah, it's global technically, because they have meetups in Canada. There you go. You could start a global movement, right? Yeah. It really is all based on your goals and what you envision for your brand. So Liz and Andressa are they're all in on building that community. So Josh McCallan and I are about, education, and then, meetups, and then building the community, and then potentially partnering. So they have a very clear vision on building the brand through other people. And I mean, it's a brilliant model to follow because I think I'm a visual person, right? So that really hits home for me when I see a map. Literally, Andressa sent out a map of all the little pins for their real estate investor meetups. And I'm like, oh my God, it's really cool to witness, the expansion of a brand started from a show, one simple podcast,
It's crazy. It's crazy how amazing it's been, and it's been life-changing. So here's the backstory, right? So I get a text message from Erik, and he's like, "Hey, do you have 5 minutes?" And I'm like, "For this guy, of course. I've got all the time in the world." So we jump on a call quick, and he said, "I want to run something past you. There's this concept that I think could work. That's pretty." It's pretty unique. We're going to try it, right? Yeah. And it's going to be a full day of podcasting, guests coming in. We have different folks. Everyone in our community, our inner circle is involved with it. Lots of great folks. That's kind of the vision that he had. And I'm like, this sounds like a pretty unique thing. And by the way, we're talking about PodMax, the first one.
Yeah.
And then the event was, I mean, I'll get into that, just my feedback from my point of view. But PodMax, this whole idea, if you could share how you came up with this, what was the thinking behind it, what it is for all of our listeners listening.
Yeah. And I'm really excited to hear your side of it. I know you've told me before, but I want to hear you here talk about your perspective, because it's really all about people's experience. And what we wanted to do was continue the experience that people get from being on our shows, right? So we have a studio here in New Jersey, in Trenton, and we have one also in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, and we're constantly expanding that reach and footprint. But the cool thing that I always tell people is when you have a show, the magic happens when the mic turns off. That's when partnerships are formed. That's when deals are made. That's when, leveling up your business or yourself starts to happen. Perfect example, Dave Van Horn was on one of our shows. I knew Dave Van Horn, from a very surface level. But when he became a guest on the show, we got to tell a story that he doesn't normally tell. And it got emotional. What opportunities would you have normally to sit down with someone, have access to someone you don't normally have access to, and then tell their story in a way that really resonates with not just the audience, but with the guests themselves, where they feel they've opened up to you and now they feel closer to you. So Dave and I have been partnering on other things now. All these opportunities are opening for me personally because of Dave. And that's what I'm talking about when I say the magic happens when the mic turns off. So how do we give this to other people? How do I spread this love to people who don't have this access and also don't have a podcast, right?
Right.
So this was sort of the impetus and the birth of PodMax. Why don't we do this, but why don't we 10x it? Why don't we create multiple studios, because we only have one in this building, and just for the day, we asked for permission. Can we take several conference rooms? Can we take the main area, put a stage? Can we create an event where people can walk in the door at 8 a.m. and we give them a piece of paper that says, hey, John, you're on studio 1 at 9 a.m. You're in studio 2 at 10 a.m. You're in studio, and then it's just one after the other, giving you the opportunity to jump on podcasts that you're a fan of, like MC Lobster's Cashflow Ninja, like Josh McCown and my show, Capital Hacking, Matt Faircloth's YouTube DeRosa channel, which has tens and thousands of viewers. So this is something that we've spent time and effort building these relationships, right? But as a PodMax guest, you didn't have to do all that legwork. You didn't have to spend the time building those relationships, because guess what? We're opening the door for you to come be our guest and to be on all these shows in one day. The most efficient use of your time, by the way, to knock out 6, 7, 8 shows in one day. Really, really. Anna Kelly, who's a friend of ours.
Yeah.
She was like, stack them up. I was like, normally the limit is 5 to 6 for people because your brain starts to turn to mush after a little while, right? Especially a full day from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. And she was like, I want to take as much advantage of this as possible. Stack it up. I think we gave her a ton, way more than any human can normally take. But she's such a trooper, right? She's amazing. But yeah, that's pretty much the PodMax experience. And that's what I like to call it, really, MC, is an experience because there's so many things that happen throughout the course of the day, not just recording podcasts. In between, there's conversations being made, there's deals happening, there's networking happening, right? And what the coolest thing is now, and you sort of helped to set this off, is we have guest speakers. So the very first PodMax, MC and I were on the stage together, and I interviewed him about the power of podcasting and what it's done for him in his life. And now we have, in this upcoming one, Jason Pfeiffer, the editor-in-chief of Entrepreneur Magazine, which is a massive brand, not as big as the Cashflow Ninja brand, but he's massive because he has 3 shows, one for Entrepreneur Circle, another one for iHeartRadio, and then another one that he does on his own. But he is clearly an expert in podcasting, and what we want to do is bring those experts to you, and actually have an opportunity to meet, network, and who knows what's going to happen, when it comes to that magazine. We all have the potential to be a part of that and partner with them as well.
You're listening to the Cashflow Ninja, the show helping people all over the world create monthly cash flow and achieve freedom today, not in 10, 20, 30, and or 40 years. This is the show where cash is not king, but cash flow is king. We will be right back after a word from our sponsors. MC Lampshire, the creator of the Cashflow Ninja and Cashflow Coach at Producers Wealth, where we help our clients integrate infinite banking with their business and investments. To learn how you can create your own banking system to turbocharge your investments and business in 30 days or less, go to yourownbankingsystem.com. That's yourownbankingsystem.com. My friend Dave Zook from The Real Asset Investor says you can be conventional or you can be wealthy. Pick one. The Real Asset Investor team creates value for investors looking for higher yield returns from ATM machines and self-storage investments. Their syndications offer attractive investment opportunities that produce strong cash flow, equity growth, huge tax incentives. They are truly passive and managed by a world-class team. To learn more about the exciting investment opportunities the Real Asset Investor offers, such as their ATM and self-storage syndications, please visit cashflowninja.com/Real Asset Investor. You're listening to the Cashflow Ninja, the show helping people all over the world create monthly cash flow and achieve freedom today, not in 10, 20, 30, and or 40 years. This is the show where cash is not king, but cash flow is king. Now let's return to our interview.
Yeah, it was, I've got to say, it was a top class, like a 5-star experience from start to finish. You get there as a podcaster, you would get there in the morning and it was just a great breakfast, right? Everybody was there, all the folks that were being interviewed, the other podcasters, and we were just chatting and networking and meeting new folks at that stage, right? And this was the first one, so we didn't quite know what to expect, right? So it was just people hanging out for breakfast and chit-chatting and so forth. And then throughout the day, it was just great with all these different studios set up. So you just had to be prepared and move to the different studios that you were allocated into to interview the different guests. So the flow was really, really good because there were breaks in between. So you could go from, finish up an interview, grab a cup of coffee, chat with someone else, and then go on to the next one. Then there was a great lunch that we all had together too. So everybody came together and we're chatting and networking and catching up on the story that we couldn't finish over breakfast, right? So we did that. And then the flow of the day was great. I love the stage that was there too, because I always like to, I'm just one of those nerds. I always try to learn something from other folks, right? So I'd see different interview styles and maybe different ways that questions are phrased. Anyway, so then and by the way, let me just touch on that. The caliber of the guests were phenomenal. Folks that listen to the show, they've listened to them. They've listened to the episodes, so they know the caliber of folks that were interviewed on the show. So the guests were phenomenal. And then we wrapped up the day and had a great little after party. We of course that's when everybody lets their hair down, right?
Yeah.
Chat a little bit. And have some fun. But it was just a great experience from a podcaster's side, because I had great guests that were already booked, lined up. We got to work in a lot of different episodes, which is great. So maximum use of time, maximum efficiency, and then also the people that you get to meet. And that was the first time I met Anna, by the way. And she's now I always look forward to seeing her at different events, and we always catch up and chat. And she's got a lot of cool stuff going on. So that is the power, the stuff that happens behind the scenes and in between that. So it was just a fantastic experience overall. And then if you're a guest, by the way, on this is the power of podcasting, right? The power, if you get onto a show, let's just say you're a real estate investor, or you have a brand, or a company or a business, you get, if you think about even like which most people would consider smaller shows, there's thousands of people. Let's just even say there's a show that gets 1,000 listeners an episode. How many meetups and speaking events do you need to go to to get in front of 1,000 people? Okay. Yeah. And if you're interviewed on 5 or 6 shows, or even 3 or 4 at that, let's just say on the low side, it's 1,000 people that listens to that show. There's 3,000 to 4,000 to 5,000 people that you get in front, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So it's a maximum use of a guest time, and then also the reach just beyond the show, because it's number one, evergreen. It's all over social media. Folks are sharing this, and now you're on different platforms: iHeart, Stitcher, iTunes, Spotify, Pandora, which a lot of shows are getting onto. Yeah. It's a very, very cool and unique concept.
Yeah. I love everything you said, and thank you for sharing your perspective. I didn't mention, and I like that you highlighted from a podcaster's perspective. It's making the best use of your time, because you're able to batch record. You're able to record, up to maybe 10 shows in one day. Yep. And also what's cool is that what I started to notice, the synergy between podcasters. So a lot of you guys hadn't met each other before. Yep. Start talking shop, because podcasters, you quickly start to realize when you start one it's a business, and you have to run it like a business. You have to assemble teams, you have to assemble systems and processes and put those into place. So it's funny, because then you get to talk to the podcasters about, hey, what are you doing? How, what platforms are you? It's like all the back end geeky stuff that we like to geek out on. You get to talk to podcasters about. And then I noticed that because the podcasters, they're no slouches. They're movers and shakers. They're huge in the industry, like such as yourself, Jason and Peely. And I noticed podcasters were trying to have each other as guests. And I'm like, no. You can't interview each other. We're here to interview our guests, the entrepreneurs, and you could do that offline. But it's so cool to watch those partnerships and those friendships form because of PodMax. But I also wanted to add something to what you were saying. As a guest, from a guest's perspective, and you're going to be interviewed on all these shows, is when all the shows start to air, and I think, MC, you were one of the first, if not the first, to release an episode after PodMax, you start to rank on Google, right? So if you're familiar with the term SEO, search engine optimization, and you have a brand out there, whether it's in real estate or you're an entrepreneur. Mostly what we do is focus on real estate, so it's very beneficial for you if you have a business within real estate investing. So you start to rank and align your brand with MC's brand, with Matt Faircloth's brand, with Liz Faircloth and the real estate investor brand. All of a sudden, people start to, if they want to do business with you, Google you and see, oh, wait a minute. This person was a guest on MC's show. This guy was a guest on Matt Faircloth's show. And that's starting to build the foundation of trust that helps you to create and grow your business. So,
yeah. That is so true too, because again, like with Podmax, there's an application process, there's a screening process, and just in general, what we do is we screen our guests. Obviously, when we have them on. So if somebody, to your point, Googles, let's just say someone's name, and they see that they've been on Matt's show, they've been on my show, they've been on a couple of other people's show, then it starts to build, obviously, a reputation that this particular person has a lot of value and shared a lot of value and is doing something in their particular niche or industry, right?
Yeah.
So very, very powerful stuff. So let's talk about Podmax 2, which is coming up December 6th. So to ramp up, talk about finishing the decade on a high note.
Oh, yeah.
Talk a little bit about December 6th. So you've mentioned already that we have a big guest coming in as one of our someone that you would be interviewing, Entrepreneur Magazine. I mean, if you're lying yourself, just look at what Erik's done here too, right? Podmax, Entrepreneur Magazine,
Yeah.
So you practice what you preach, brother. Love it. So Podmax, December 6th, talk to us a little bit about it, and also for folks that are still interested in getting involved in this.
Yeah, absolutely. So we had a lot of success with the very first one, way more than we had ever imagined. The testimonials, the constant giving back, feedback, the amount of leads people are getting. We had somebody come through that said when his episodes, only 2 episodes had aired, and I know one of them was yours, MC, he got over 60 leads come through. And that is just mind-blowing. I also spoke to someone that came through that said he found a business partner, not through the podcast itself. One of the other entrepreneurs that was a guest being interviewed. They met, they were having lunch together, and hey, why don't we, take down some properties together? It was amazing. So those are the cool things that happen that you can't really predict. So the next one, what we thought to ourselves, the team got together and we said, how can we level it up? We're always going to figure out and try to figure how can we create a new experience for the people who are coming back, but at the same time, provide something fresh and new without changing it drastically, because they're also going to come expecting the same thing, right? Right. So we've got a lot of things. I don't want to give away too much, but Jason Pfeiffer, Entrepreneur Magazine, was one of them. And then there's going to be, certain giveaways, certain sort of things that people really aren't going to expect, but, they're going to walk away surprised. That's really it. We've already planned 2020. All of the Podmaxes are some of them are booked, and some of them already have plans, guest speakers, new shows that are coming on board. So we're adding to the family. The On Air Brands Network is growing. We're bringing in more podcasters. They're very, very interested in being a part of this on both ends of the mic. So if you're an entrepreneur, I would highly recommend checking out podmax.co and looking at the dates there. There's also an application process so that, and like MC said, we don't take everyone. It's invitation only. And that being, we want to make sure that our podcasters are getting high performers and people who are crushing business in life, so that, they can tell their story and provide value to the podcasters as well. So I highly recommend going to podmax.co, applying. And if you want to be a podcaster, reach out as well. Email me at Erik, ERIK, at onairbrands.com, and we'll talk.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is, like you just said, the partnerships that was formed. Here's another story. In my group, my meetup group in Newtown, there was someone that reached out to me in my meetup group that heard someone being interviewed from Podmax on my show that was part of our group. But because that person said something, he was listening to the episode, it resonated with them. They've kind of gotten to know each other. It was kind of a new member in our group. They're doing stuff together now. So it's the power. Yeah. So it's the power of that. And here's the other thing for folks that are interested in this. there's the meetup group that I do in Newtown, Pennsylvania. It's about 25 minutes away, Newtown, from the On Air brand studio where PodMax is at the Hive, and where this all will be recorded and going down. So folks are coming in from out of town and flying in on the Thursday night, and you can fly into Trenton Mercer Airport, which is pretty close, or you could fly into Philadelphia. If you stay up in this area that I'm at in Bucks County, close to Newtown, Yardley, and so forth, come out and join us at our meetup group the Thursday night. Spend some time with some fantastic real estate investors. It's a pretty cool group that we've built up over the past year. So you get to hang out with some real estate investors, meet some great people, and then the Friday, you're at the On Air Brand studio and meeting folks, being interviewed, and like just networking with all of those folks in that community.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And I remember you giving me a call saying, hey, I got this really cool idea. What do you think? And I was like, man, that is just adding value to more and more people, because, someone who was going to come through anyway now has something to do the night before, especially hanging out with you. I mean, your meetup, I've been there from, I want to say day one, but I think day two. But, I did find this out, which was cool. I was your first physical guest speaker. You were the guest speaker.
You were. Yes.
Somebody, I forgot, I didn't really know, or maybe I forgot, but someone told me, you were the guest speaker for the first one. And I was like, man, it was such an honor to be there. And now seeing it grow, every time I go, every month, it's getting bigger and bigger, and seeing the same people. I highly recommend anyone out there who's trying to grow their business or figure this out. Somebody, called me recently and said, I want to start a business, but how do I get clients? Well, first off, you got to put yourself out there. And you have to start meeting people, and you meet people within your industry by going to networking events like MCs. And that's where, again, the magic starts to happen, because I'm starting to meet your tribe and see them over and over and over. And then they're listening to my shows, and they're saying, oh, I love your show too. And I hear MC. And then it's, I liken this to what we're building to a super group. Anyone who's a music fan, you'll have band members from Pearl Jam, merge with the Rage Against the Machine guys. And then they all, an Audio Slave, and then they all start to merge and form super groups. Yep. And what you do, what I do with McAllen and Chad Gallagher and Matt, we all sort of merge our brands together, and then we break off and we do our own thing. And then we come back together, and then we just continue to keep growing. The whole abundance mindset is just so amazing to be a part of and to watch happen. So, yeah.
Awesome, my friend. Yeah. So, just given the URL. Well, yeah, that was a mouthful. If you want to give them that just one more time, if you're interested, if you're a real estate investor, if you're someone that's doing syndications, if you have a business in the industry, you're trying to grow your business, you're trying to reach more folks, I would highly recommend you check it out. Plus, the fact that you get to spend a full day with a lot of really, really cool people, folks that are very successful. And, if you want to look at where you're going to go in 2020, you have to look at your inner circle and the groups that you're a part of. And this is a way to jumpstart it. It's elevated my game just being around some of the people that's going to be at PodMax. 100%. So I would definitely recommend you check it out. What's that URL? Yeah,
go to PodMax, PODMAX.co. Even look for us on Facebook, On Air Brands Live on Facebook. We're always pushing stuff out there. We created a PodMax page as well on Facebook, which is growing. But look for onairbrands.com and then look for podmax.co, and you'll get more information there.
And definitely mention that you heard about PodMax on our show so that we know where it's coming from.
Yes, and also exclusive to your listeners here, right? And I know you pushed something out last night. Thank you very much. But anyone who's listening that wants to be a part of this and wants to apply, put in the promo code Cashflow30 to get 30% off the ticket price. So that's a big thing that we pushed out, and we're pushing it through our partners. So that's a nice little promo for your tribe there.
Awesome. Well, I really appreciate it, Erik. And outside of PodMax, where can folks follow you? Where can they? Because you're just rolling out projects, brother. How do they keep it? How do they keep informed of everything that you got going on?
Yeah. So Entrepreneur Circle is my show personally. Yep. So if you look for Entrepreneurs Circle, look for that on iTunes, Spotify, and all major platforms. I'm on Instagram at Erik E. Cabral. That's where I usually push out my entrepreneur circle stuff. And I'm on Facebook. Hit me up on Facebook. Erik Cabral. Erik E. Cabral, I think, is on all those social platforms. But yeah, Entrepreneur Circle, we're doing a lot of really cool stuff there. Interviewed a lot of people. MC was on that show as well. And it's a lot of fun, man. It's building brands, building your own brands, showing the proof in the pudding is always my mantra. So, yeah.
Awesome. Well, really appreciate you, my friend. Thank you so much again for coming on the show. Always appreciate our time together. Now I'm excited. Definitely check out PodMax, and I look forward to if you're applying or in the process and joining us. Look forward to spending some time with you the Thursday night and the Friday. Again, thank you so much, my friend. Appreciate you.
Thanks, brother. Thanks. Appreciate you, and I love you, man. Thanks for everything.
Life settlement investments have allowed financial and banking institutions to not only buy their equity contractually, but also diversify their capital from any economic, market, and geopolitical risk. It's been part of the billion-dollar blueprint followed by institutional investors. And if you're an accredited investor, you can also now participate in this vehicle with enormous growth potential. You can watch an informational webinar presented by one of the premier organizations providing life settlement investments, Penumbra Solutions, at cashflowninja.com/life settlements. Thank you again for joining me on the Cashflow Ninja. If you like what you hear and appreciate what we're trying to build here, please subscribe, rate, and write a review for our show on iTunes and share our show with family, friends, and your network. If you're not a subscriber to our newsletter, you can sign up for our newsletter at cashflowninja.com. I want to thank you for spending your most precious resource with me today, your time. Until next time, my friend, live a life of passion and purpose on your terms. This presentation is for educational and informational purposes only. The information being presented and considered does not consider your particular financial objectives or situation, and it does not make personalized recommendations. This material is not intended to replace the advice of a qualified tax and legal advisor or other qualified professionals, and you should not use the information in place of a customized consultation with a licensed professional regarding your specific personal financial objectives, situation, and needs. We believe the information provided is reliable, but we do not guarantee its accuracy, timeliness, or completeness.